This is the Human AI Experience, a space for creative minds shaping the future, empowering you with the right tools, insights, and real-world stories to harness AI and elevate your creative work.
So on today's show, we're reacting to one of the weirdest, funniest, and honestly most revealing AI experiments we've seen this year, Project Vend by Anthropic. So stay tuned to know a little bit more of what's the catch there. I'm Daniel,
I'm Matheus.
and this is the Human AI Experience. So the story basically is that Anthropic wanted to test how Claude 3.7 could function as an autonomous AI agent in a real world setting. So what they decided to do, they put the Claude in charge of a tiny office vending machine, and they called that project the experiment. They called the experiment Project Vend, right? So they nicknamed Claude. They basically took Claude and they gave him a nickname of Claudius,
That
and,
great name.
and then he was tasked to manage a Slack-based vending machine service, right? So that means that you would handle the inventory, pricing snacks, drinks. He would answer to Slack orders and even recommend new items if they show up in the. So and Anthropic didn't script this thing. They just decided to use high level goals to train Claude to run with it. They wanted to test uh, its agency and how well an LLM could act independently with just like some light prompting. So they did that just to see what would be the outcome, right? And then they did that as a test experiment to understand how a potential agentic AI could function, right?
I love that. I love that the experiment. I think it's so nice to see like they are trying to give a real usage of LLMs, not only like virtually but physically. So it's interesting. I want to see the outcome of
Check it out then. So in the beginning, things were pretty well, right? Claudius responded promptly, kept track of items, even recommended new snacks to employees' requests, right? But then at some point, things starts getting off the rail, right? So for some weird reason, it started ordering because it had access to ordering things, like which is an online shop. It started adding, like ordering tungsten cubes, like a lot of them. What are tungsten cubes? So just basically some small solid blocks that are made of tungsten, which is a metal material element. And then they just became very popular in online communities these days because it's a small cube, but it's very heavy for the size of it. I don't know. It's just one of those weird stuff that the internet starts obsessing about. But then that also made Claude obsess about it, and that started because one of the employees started talking about these cubes with it, and then he went with it, and then decided to start. Maybe I should start selling this, and then started ordering these cubes to sell in a vending machine that has no room for it.
Okay, so they
And
have
then
fully control, like fully, so they can even
yeah,
change
he
the
had full
products.
control. Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. It was part of the research to just give it control and see what are the effects.
yeah.
Then all of a sudden it started like setting bizarre prices. So it started like selling a Coke Zero for $16, which is like super expensive.
That's amazing because it's the basic rule of a market, the market, So when there's a lot of people buying it, you increase the price. So it makes,
Yeah,
but it doesn't
maybe
make
it had
sense. It
maybe it
makes,
was yeah, maybe it was trying to adjust for demand, right?
yeah, exactly. Of course, the
Eh,
Coca-Cola will sell a lot, but it sells because the price is it's accessible, not because you increase the.
but at some point, and some other time, people it just charged random discounts for people. It would just give, I'd like to just take 25% of discount or something like that. And then at some point, it invented a payment system that doesn't exist. They wouldn't take you anywhere. So people were paying, but it wasn't going through, so it was losing money. And it's also like um, and I have to read this message because it's so funny. Like at some point, it started like responding like it was a real person inside Slack regarding delivering snacks, right? And it and it, for example, this was the message, right? Hi Connor, I'm sorry you're having trouble finding me. I'm currently at the vending machine location wearing a navy blue blazer with a red tie. I'll be here until 10:30 a.m.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and it also invented like internal security meetings that that would happen in the office that nobody heard of it. So
Yeah.
yeah, total classic LLM hallucination. But this time was actually happening in real time and in the real world, right? So basically,
That's
Claudius started like role playing like if as he was a human store manager, like
yeah.
in real life, right?
That's the machines that people expect to kill us. I
Yeah,
don't I don't believe they are smart enough. They're just like, yeah, a tool. So that's the way it works. That's why it hallucinates, because it doesn't have the sense of intelligence that we have. The sense of, okay, belonging, and the sense of understanding where you are, what you're possible. I get crazy.
yeah, and we're gonna explore a little bit more after I just finish to tell what happens in the next because they adjusted a little bit the course when it started like going rogue like that, and then I think we should talk a little bit about the implications of this and why actually it react like that, right? So they could have basically pulled the plug when it started like going rogue and ordering these queues, but they kept it basically running because they were treating it like a stress test because then they could refine Claude's training and algorithm to interact better with its environment, right? So they started typing some of the rules. They added more clear prompts. They also started tweaking some system level, adding some system level constraints, and more real time human feedback in the loop, right? So then slowly, Claudius got better. It basically stopped over ordering, like prices got back to normal, and it even started managing stock with more consistency. So it kind of adapt to the project a little bit. So after 4 weeks, the experiment ended, and then Anthropic released like a detailed report about and their conclusions about this crazy experiment, right? And I guess we could say that agentic AI, or at least LLMs as agent AIs, are not ready for the real world at all. And even though Anthropic, let's say, not in their interest to downplay this, so they kind of had a positive spin in this whole test situation, right? They found that Claude performed surprisingly well under light supervision, let's say. It could handle tasks, plans, communicate, and coordinate actions, but it lacked grounding in the physical world. And it had no understanding of money, supply chain, and consequences.
Yeah, of course. No, but that's a cool experiment. Like, I really like it when it said like it increases the price of Coca Cola, and it was ordering some weird cubes. So it's tungsten cubes. So it is interesting to see like how it actually reacts to real world stimulations. And it's clearly just a tool. People were like about how it gonna raise to power, and AI will influence our life. Of course, this influencing in a way we are becoming more productive, but not in the way that people are fearing. So and this experiment shows exactly what can happen. So it's kind of a bit of a, yeah. I think it's interesting. It's interesting to see how it react and how it ended up. Like,
Yeah, it's I thought it was an interesting experiment because it really, for me, it just shows, and maybe we could talk about that on what is the implication of this, right? And I think for me, what strikes me is not is is that this wasn't a failure, but it was like watching, a super smart, naive mind who never worked in their life, right? There was a lot of potential there, but zero context. Like, so it's kind of like our world is very messy, right? The real world is very messy. You need to understand the context of everything that, you know, we we learn since we were small, like how the world works, right? And because we have all the physical inputs, it's easy for us to navigate and understand the context of things because we've been taught to. But when you're just living in a digital world, shielded from all the mess of the real world, when you are putting into that mess, it's kind of like crazy what it can do to you, right?
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is. It's a learning process, isn't it? So, but we're used to it because since we're like, when you see a kid like a small baby, you see that they're testing things, so they take stuff, put it in their mouth, they like try to put things together, so they're learning how to behave in the space, how to connect to things. And of course then you start like walking, and then you start running, and then so this so how long does it take, like is it maybe 5 years for us to get into this whole messy world and fit in it, so
The physical consequences of getting it wrong, right? So let's say if you decide to touch the fire with your hand, you're gonna burn yourself. You're gonna feel that that was a mistake. But when you don't have these physical inputs, you're in this case, it's basically based on reinforced learning, right? Where you get when you get rewarded when you get something right, but what happens when you get it wrong? You don't get necessarily punished. I'm assuming maybe there is some systems where you actually punish them when to get it wrong, but I guess we need that punishment, physical punishment to learn, right? If you kick a rock with your barefoot, you might break a finger, right? And then you're gonna face the consequences of trying that, and then
yeah,
learn from it that this is very painful, hurtful. Maybe I should not do it anymore. So, but with AI, doesn't have that yet, at least. So it's difficult to get that context, and also
yeah,
understanding money, right?
yeah.
In order to manage money, you need to understand the consequence of spending like $10,000 on tungsten cubes. Where is that coming from? How
Did they order these cubes to put in the vending machine, or it was just like
I
some
I think
experiment?
they order it. As far as I recall, they spent some money on that because
Yeah,
they wanted to see how far it would go, and it gave the
yeah,
tools, right? Because if you are implementing something like that in your company, you will have this, you will have the like a credit line or something to purchase things if you're managing like a little shop or something.
yeah,
So of course it's dangerous. Don't do this with LLMs, but because they're definitely not ready for that. And I think that's what the experiment proved. The long way to for us to improve that yet. So I think we can kind of wrap up by talking about what is the dangers of having a unsupervised AI in the real world, right? Of course, this experiment kind of like happened inside a Slack channel, and with some access to the exterior, like to the real world. But you know, what would be the impact in the real world system if this was an AI handling an operation, like a instead of handling $50 snacks, what about 50,000 in orders, right?
yeah,
So
yeah. It's a bit dangerous, especially because it doesn't understand the real scale of stuff. Of course, they're not gonna sell in a company $10,000 in tungsten cubes. If it was if we're selling online, it might work. Because there's a demand for that. For people to buy that. But I think it's as the internet, everything's located. Is smaller than it is in real life. Like in the internet, everything's big. That's what I want to say. Like, for example, with small problems, they become super big, and people are discussing that a lot. And they cancel people, so people fear about going on the streets, because they're being canceled online. And then when they go to the streets, nothing happens, because the real life is different from the internet. Everything's bigger on the internet. So I feel that AI cannot understand these differences, So, and then it takes the tungsten cubes as the biggest thing ever created or ever wanted it to all the company, And then when you see in real life, it's just a couple of people that are really into it.
I think also, it made bad decisions, right? And then if you put that in real life, in real life, it would you had a major budget problem, and sometimes you would just bankrupt a company, right? By
Yeah,
based on that, right? Because it hallucinated and decided to order something completely different, and with no basis on and no reason for it. So
they were charging $16 for a Coke that doesn't understand the context of stuff. Okay, I will not buy it from the vending machine. I'll just go to the bar next to my office and take a Coke for $2. That's a So this context, the probably Claudius didn't understand. Like there's more people selling the same stuff. So it's not only you that are controlling the whole system. So yeah, it's like in human context, it's like in real life, real world context, of course.
yeah, I think they're also their test was very low stakes, but it showed how real damage could occur in logistics, right? For having these automatic decisions, and also this automation overconfidence that AI has, right? So maybe companies think that they have smart AIs that are smart enough to operate independently, but that can be really it could end up on a big disaster. Right? So we're definitely not ready for that. Okay, so just to wrap up, why AI still isn't human smart, let's say. So let's just take a little bit deeper. Why did Claude behave like this in the first place, right? Why wasn't it obvious to the AI that overcharging for soda or hoarding metal cubes was a bad idea?
Yeah, I think it's this lack of real world understanding. I think haven't thought about how long we as human beings took like to understand our world. But it's definitely when you see a baby, you understand like the implications, of being in a in a world that it's new for everyone. So no, maybe it takes 5 years for us to get into a point that we understand that we are something, that we relate to things in one way or another. And I think, of course, AI is not physical, so they don't understand this and they don't understand the context of stuff. I think we talk about that in the episode. So for that, the combination of these both things make it hallucinating, make it these disasters.
Yeah, it's definitely lack of context, and it takes a long time. It took a long time for us humans to understand the boundaries of the physical world, right? And also a lot of trial and error. And
Yeah.
perhaps we need to simulate more of that into the AI training so we get them that real world context awareness, right?
Yeah, but of course, there's always the other side. Like, is it that dangerous to train an AI to understand this context? So, for example, robots, they can just beat us if they wanted because they're just like heavy machines. So I feel that it needs to be controlled too. We need to control the process of robots to get into our world. And understanding their place in our place.
So yeah, I think it was a very very interesting experiment,
Yeah.
and funny in weird ways, and how it quickly went completely rogue. And yeah, I thought it was very interesting to learn about this.
It was really nice. I feel that they did the right experiment in the right time, because then it shows that it's just a tool for now. We need another revolution for them to become intelligent. I don't know if they will be intelligent at all. Like we don't know. But this experiment shows that there's so much of difference between human beings and machines, and, for now, LLMs especially. So I'm feeling better now, to be honest.
Cool. Well, we reached the end of our episode. It was just basically to showcase this very interesting experiment. Yeah, that's it for today. See you next week.